Hello chaps and chapettes, and what we're looking at today is just answering a question I've had from a couple of people now. What is physics doing to help counteract the COVID-19 or coronavirus outbreak that's spreading across the world right now? And the answer is, well, quite a bit. So what we're looking at here is mostly physics' contribution to something called structural biology. And that's looking at the structure of viruses and bacteria, basically the very, very small organic components you can find of living life, including COVID-19. And some of the things that are going on for that are things like X-ray crystallography, synchrotron particle accelerators being used in support of that, and free electron lasers as well are a piece of technology that is being used, and also cryo-electronic microscopy. This is all feeding into something called rational drug design, which we're going to get into a little bit later. There's also something else that physicists are doing directly, and that's physicists and engineers. They are now volunteering in hospitals to support the NHS, and well, let's go into what things are there. So, first of all, X-ray crystallography. Now, this is a process which relies on something called diffraction, where you pass a wave through a small slit and it starts to spread out. And when you get lots and lots of different slits with lots of waves passing through them, they start to add together to form interesting patterns we call diffraction patterns. Now, you might have seen that in Alevelphysics, where it's just a very simple diffraction grating and you get lots of little lines coming out of this one. And I might even just show you that now. It's really quite simple. Right, so really quickly, this is a diffraction grating from the MPL. These are very cool glasses. They make everything look absolutely wonderful. This is a laser beam attached to a remote control. And what I'm going to do is just pass the laser beam through this diffraction grating. And as you can see, nice single beam, and then, whoop, oh, hang on, it's terrible. Let's try that again. Single beam, there. Lots of little beams popping out. A little bit of reflected light coming out there as well, which is kind of interesting. But single beam, pass it over the diffraction grating, and we get this spreading effect, and we apparently have more beams coming out. And that's a diffraction pattern. And that's essentially what these X-ray things are doing. So, there you go. So there we go, and that's really just a very, very simple setup where you have beam coming in and splitting apart. X-ray crystallography is the same thing, but it is for very small gaps. And that means we fire an X-ray through a small piece of material and you get a unique diffraction pattern depending on the structure of it. And that's great because we can use that to look at proteins and virus structures really quite small. The problem with viruses, though, is that their structures are really tiny. We're just talking like a few molecules, if that really, for a virus. So X-ray crystallography doesn't work so well for really small things. What you need then is a higher intensity beam, and this higher intensity beam comes from particle accelerators sometimes, where you can have a particle whizzing around in a cyclotron, going basically around in a circle, somewhere approaching the speed of light, and then as you get it to strike surfaces, high intensity beams of light are produced, high energy beams of light as well, so you can get X-rays being produced from this one. And that high intensity means that you get some nice clear images of whatever it is you're looking at. There are some other ways of getting high intensity beams, and that's going to be things like the free electron laser. And that's where you have an electron fired down like a small channel of magnets, which increases the speed of the electron, and then you actually get a nice beam of light being produced from that as well. I'm not going to go into the physics of all, because honestly, it gets very complicated very quickly. Essentially what you're doing is you're having this particle bouncing around, and because of the change in direction you actually get a photon being produced as well, but we'll not go into that because it's way beyond GCSE and A-level. It does focus on the sort of duality of electromagnetism, but we'll leave it at that. There is a very recent piece of technology which is now allowing us to see really good clear images, and you can see on the screen right now, this is an image of COVID-19, which was produced by something called cryogenic electron microscopy. Microscopy? Microscopy. Gosh, difficult word to say. And it's a really nice way of producing an image. Electron microscopy is where you essentially take an electron needle, so really, really fine needle to the point of an electron, and you literally scrape it along the surface. Well, not literally, you scrape it along the surface somewhat, like you would do an old record player, an old LP player. And it kind of bumps up and down, and you sense the variations in that bump, not strictly through height, but various different means. And then you can actually get an image of whatever it is that you're looking at by the bumps that goes up and down. There are a couple of other ways of doing that. You also have tunneling electron microscopy. Basically, you shoot the electron through and you get the image that way around instead, which probably is how we got this particular image there. Now, the problem with trying to do that for organic molecules, actual living things or viruses as well, they move. And so cryogenic electron microscopy, I'm just going to say EM, cryogenic EM at this point. Cryogenic EM, it sort of freezes the molecules in situ so you can get a nice, well-defined image without the thing moving around. And that's really helpful, that's really useful. And that means that we got the nice image we have in front of us. That was a very recent development, actually. That was a Nobel Prize awarded to some scientists in 2017. So only a couple of years ago, and it has really helped us understand the coronavirus in much greater detail. Now you might be thinking, what's the point in all this? It's very nice to take a picture of it, but it's not going to help us produce an actual vaccine or a cure. And this leads into rational drug design. If we know what the structure of these things are, we can produce drugs which actually attack it. In the before times, in the old days, what you would do is you take a selection of drugs and you kind of fire it at the virus or bacteria, and you'd see which one worked. And that's very much trial and error, it's effective, you'll get there eventually, but it takes some time. So instead, by imaging the actual virus or imaging the bacteria you want to target, you can start to create a vaccine or a drug directly, which is going to attack it. And that's what's happened with coronavirus and COVID-19. Just a bit of a cut there. We had some kids outside playing. It's a wonderful day outside. The last thing that scientists are doing, physicists and engineers are doing, is that they are actually being called to volunteer in hospitals right now to support the NHS. And that means that they are going into hospitals to operate the medical physics equipment that is in there. Things like MRI machines, ultrasound devices, all the sort of engineering bits that go into healthcare. Obviously, the healthcare workers there right now would need to be pulled off to go and, work with very sick people who have coronavirus. And their expertise is somewhat being wasted by running an ultrasound device. What engineers can do is come in and use their technical expertise, maybe not specific to that material, that device, but with the general sense of engineering, and apply it and perform that role in a very, very brief fashion. For people that maybe don't have coronavirus, or maybe people that do and have some underlying conditions. So this is the idea. Engineers can come in and use their expertise in sonics, in magnetic nuclear resonance, and with X-rays to actually run these devices whilst the medical staff get on with solving the crisis here. And that's really quite brave and quite outstanding. And if any engineers are watching this, I really recommend you go and do it. It's going to be helping out the NHS and helping out a bunch of people that otherwise may be in severe problems. So there you go. Those are all the things that physicists are doing to help combat coronavirus. And what I want you to kind of realize from this video is that we are phenomenally well equipped to deal with this. We have so much in terms of structural biology sensing and testing equipment that we can image these things, and we have imaged it about a few months after it was deemed an outbreak. We've been able to develop a vaccine in record time because of this. And what I want you to take away from this is that physics and biology, these two things are working together. There are undoubtedly other sectors of civilization that are working together against this thing. And that should be really comforting for you. Not only is the technological advances in communication making staying at home much, much easier now. Some of you watching this on YouTube right now. But also the technological advances we've made in physics, and hopefully you as future scientists are going to make the next outbreak much, much quicker to deal with and much easier to bear as well. So, a little bit of hopeful ray of sunshine on a beautiful day like this. amid the growing fears about coronavirus. It is terribly, terribly scary, but it's also rather fascinating seeing how we're dealing with it right now. And I just really hope that maybe in the future we'll be even more prepared to deal with something like this again. So, there you go guys, I'll catch you in the next video. Stay safe.